I love Masato. Retrospective, where today we'll be talking about the episode known as A Human Work, which is a rather interesting episode that, to be honest, I completely forgot about. And it kind of makes sense because in the long scheme of things, this episode isn't really important. It really feels like filler. However, it does manage to foreshadow something significant, but I will get into that later. Now, sorry for this being kind of lazy. It really isn't. Just a lot of shit's going on right now at my place, and a lot of things are being moved around and stuff like that, and I unfortunately just don't have the means right now to put up the normal setup that you guys are usually used to. And thank you for the few that are actually sticking around and watching the show. You guys are making me really feel great. But I think the next few episodes that I make are going to be probably done in this style, where it's just going to be picture whatever. Please don't take that as me being lazy. Please don't. There's a lot of shit going on right now. And stuff like that for projects, getting ready for college and everything like that. Yeah, but why are you doing this? Well, you know what? Fuck you. I'm just gonna talk about A Human Work, because that's what you guys are here for. I'm just gonna start off with the characters, because unlike the last one, where really just because there's no character development really in the last episode, where I just kind of walked through the episode. This one I'm actually going to talk about the characters as they come up. And well, let's start with Masato. Which I have something very important to say to her towards the end of this video. But anyways, I can't say it enough. I love Masato. Masato is an absolutely beautiful, beautiful character. She's funny, she's kind, she's flawed, she's above all human. And though the fact that I'm attracted to men, I do have to say she is a rather beautifully drawn character. Of course, we also see here that she is very slobbish. Like, when she wakes up, she drinks beer instead of coffee while Shinji's drinking coffee. I find that really funny. And of course, she screams bloody murder whenever that happens and stuff like that. Yeah, it just, to me, that was just screaming Masato. It's like, this is the first time we really see that. And I really pictured Masato doing such a thing, if that makes any sense. I could picture Masato being like this, and I like that. Which I also find it funny that she's drinking beer to wake up, because, you know, beer usually gets you drunk and tipsy shit, right? Some might see it as a foreshadow as to what's coming down later in the series, where she's actually hiding a lot of stuff about her, and that she's actually really an extremely depressed character, and I'm not going to get into why yet. I'm going to get into that when the episode comes up. However, I personally don't see it like that. I just see that as Masato being, really just her kind of young adult self, if that makes any sense. Though the foreshadowing thing does have merits, because there is, as I said earlier, a shit ton of foreshadow. In fact, there's even foreshadow in this given episode here. I really personally don't think that this was the case here. I really just think that Hideki Anno wanted to portray Masato as being that young woman, or that young adult, and I think he succeeded, really, just portraying this, even in the opening. And she's also just like, it's just another one of those contrasts to Shinji, which is a great compliment for her. What I really find interesting is that where Masato is strong, Shinji is not, but where Shinji is strong, Masato is not, and I think that's just a great compliment to each other, and it really does come true here. if that makes any sense. I'm going to say that a lot because I'm really tired, you guys. I'm really sorry. But I am going to knock this out and upload it ASAFP. But again, they just complement each other really well. And the opening scenes themselves just kind of share this, where Shinji is very relaxed, very organized, eating normally. I love it when he says thank you for the meal. He's praying and stuff like that. Well, Misato's like, she doesn't give a fuck. And there's this one shot where she's like crawled up in her chair and she has like the piece of toast hanging out of her mouth. She looks like a dog. And I laugh every time I see that imagery. It's just so freaking funny. This episode really is... Misato really does steal the show in this episode. I mean, she does in the other one, but man, does she really kind of steal it. However, not so much in this one, because Ritsuko also has a huge part in that as well. And then I love how she acts like Shinji's parent for school, yet even though Gendo is alive, she is the one that has to go and represent Shinji to see his teachers and stuff like that. That's actually really sad, but yet at the same time, really sweet. So I guess it's kind of a bittersweet kind of deal, because the fact that she is willing to go see, she no longer is looking at this just as a job. She really does care for Shinji and stuff like that. Though she has a very weird way of showing it, she does really care for Shinji, and she wants to look out for Shinji, and I think this is just a great example as to that happening. The fact that she is willing to go to school and talk to his teachers and to make sure Shinji's grades are good and to just plain old take care of Shinji and give Shinji really what he's never had, and to some ways, as we find out, Misato never really had. And that is great. Again, I think those two, Misato and Shinji, I hate it when people think that they were a couple, and even in End of Eva, when they kiss, I don't look at it like that. I really don't. I see it just as they're great compliments to each other, you know? It's kind of like, almost like a Last of Us kind of situation, where it's just reversed. While in The Last of Us, we have a father-daughter relationship, here we have a mother-son relationship, and it works. It really works, and you know what? I think it's really well done. I know a lot of people say it's kind of clunky at points, and to be quite honest, yeah, it can be. However, I think that's just because it's human, and both of these characters are unbelievably realistic and human in that sense, and that's what makes them work, or that's what makes me like this. Because when I see them, I don't see characters written down on a piece of paper. I see characters that could really happen in this fucked up universe. They are very human. They are, believe it or not, in my opinion, very relatable. And again, I just love that bit with Misato going, to relate it back to, with Misato going to Shinji's school to basically be his parent, his guardian. And I think that was just a great moment for Misato as well. Okay, and then I love it how when she's finally summoned to go to that meeting that was showcasing the new prototype, I forget what it's called, I want to say it's essay. I know I wrote it down, so forgive me for not saying its name right now, but she goes to that thingy where they do the prototype Eva, because that's really what it is. It's the next morning, and everything is shot almost identically to the last morning, right? And you're expecting the door to open to Misato's room, and she being a complete slob. And it catches you completely off guard, and it really works with the audience as well, because suddenly Misato's all dressed up. She looks all neat and tidy. She doesn't drink beer. She drinks coffee, and she looks very, very professional. Which, of course, she could be very professional, as I said in the last episode, especially with the last episode where she really took charge. However, she still was kind of a sassy bastard. And here, she's just extremely professional. She gives off that aura that she's extremely professional, and the look on Shinji and Pen-Pen's face is priceless. That's great animation, just to compliment the animators at Gainax for that. And it just shows that, again, and I'm just going to drive this point home, she can be professional. She can be that kind of character. She can be... When she needs to be, you can rely on her. You can lean on her for support. You can count on her being at your side. You can count on her for getting stuff done. But of course, when you don't need that, she's just a normal human being, which I appreciate. And this episode really sells to me. I mean, we get this in the previous episode, but in this episode, it really struck to me that she is willing to think on her feet. Because when that prototype Ava goes apeshit, the JA, that was it. The thing was called the JA, or the abbreviation was JA according to the Japanese version. I forgot what that stands for. Please forgive me. She never goes to Nerve. She never discusses this with Gendo. She never discusses this with anybody else. Her battle plan on shutting down the nuclear reactors, or else there's going to be a meltdown. She's very much like, no, I got to act right now. If we don't act now, there's no time to waste. We got to go. 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 She just radios into Nerve, and she's like, get me Shinji, get me Ava Unit 01, get me a plane that can drop him there, and get me a radiation suit right now. And everyone's on board. Everyone's like, clearly this bitch knows what she's doing, so let's just follow her. And that's a really nice note. She does give off a very great leadership kind of aura about her when she needs to be that kind of leader. When she's not a leader, you can totally just see that she's a regular young adult. I've said that previous. But suddenly, when she needs to be a leader, my God, you want to follow her. You want to be on her side because you know she means business, because you know she's going to get it done. And then I love how when she actually goes into the JA, and goes inside, and of course she puts in the code HOPE, which is a nice little touch, I think. Considering how dark this universe kind of really is, or kind of sets it up to be, despite a lot of the comedy that's been in this show so far, the universe still gives itself off of having a really dark aura, and so you see something like this, the guy who built the JA, and he types that the password is HOPE. I think that's a really nice touch, because there you have a character that, and this is interesting, just to go on a side note to talk about him, I forgot his name, but the guy who designed this prototype Ava, that is supposed to be unmanned, that has basically a plug, it can drive its own self and be controlled in a room, which has its pluses and minuses in terms of quality, and has some legit merits. And this is going to replace the Ava units that were being piloted by these children. You can tell, and this is just, in my opinion, some of the genius of Hideki Anno when it came to writing. You didn't hate this guy. Sure, he came off as a smug kind of bastard at first, but he really does have his mind set in the right way. He has his mind set in the right direction, and you do not hate this guy. I mean, you kind of get you can kind of get annoyed with him, I guess, if you don't like that kind of character. But there's nothing really bad about him. There is no, and that's some of the genius with a lot of these episodes, is that other than the angels, there is no antagonist. And you know what? Just as this is really interesting, because I totally lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, I did. This is one of the few episodes that doesn't have an angel as the enemy. The enemy is just something that man created gone awry. And I want to say this is the only episode where that happens. That's interesting. That's cool. It shows it to me. This just expanded this already strange and mysterious universe even more, and made me want to learn more. Almost like how I look at Gendo. You know how I say where Gendo's one of those characters that you just want to learn more about. This universe is the same way. There's just a lot of stuff and a lot of politics that is hinted at but never really explained. It makes you want to research. It makes you want to read about it, and makes you want to learn more, and that's just another thing that I love about the show. Anyways, back to Misato. When she goes inside the JA to shut down the nuclear reactors, and the HOPE thing doesn't work, and she realizes that, well, somebody changed the programming, hint hint Ritsuko, that's no surprise to anybody if you just look at her facial expressions, but I'll get into that next. She's willing to die to save lives, and that just proves to me just how mature, in all actuality, Misato really is. And I know that kind of goes against what I just said, where she is just a normal, regular human being. However, think about it. When you learn about her tragic backstory, which I won't get into right now, it makes her decision here saying, well, it's time to sink or swim. In fact, that's the line that she says, which is a wonderful line. it makes that line and her actions in the scene make sense. And I'll leave it at that. Ritsuko, on the other hand, she begins to explain the quote-unquote real second impact, where we make contact with this being known as the first angel. That's a bunch of hogwash. Okay? We buy it. Okay? That's something that I really find interesting, is that when I first watched this show, I fucking bought it. And it's nothing but a load of hogwash. It really is. And Ritsuko, it just proves here that Ritsuko is in on it the entire time. But, you still like Ritsuko. You're still like, and especially when you discover what really happened during Second Impact, you realize that you don't want Ritsuko to be this way. You really want Ritsuko to be that complement to Misato. You want to be, again, just going back to the parallels, you want her to be that complement to Misato in terms of female characters. You want her to come out okay, but she can't, because she is so embedded in Nerve that she can't get back out. She has basically dug her own grave here, and it begins to surface in this episode. I love how she's always standing in the background. However, the shots that she's in, you always focus on her. It's kind of like on Citizen Kane. Yes, I just compared Evangelion to Citizen Kane. You will never hear me say that again. But in all the shots on Citizen Kane, whenever you see Charles Foster Kane in there, you focus on him. Even if he's not speaking at all, you focus on him because of how the scene is shot. The same goes here. Even if Misato is the one talking or giving orders, the camera is positioned where you focus on Ritsuko. And whenever you see Ritsuko, whenever you see her, she has this evil look on her face. Not really evil. I shouldn't have said evil. Evil's a strong word. She has a very, I know what's going on and none of you do. Even Misato doesn't really know what's going on. She thinks she knows, but she doesn't really. And Ritsuko does, because she's the one that did this. She's the one that made the JA mess up. And it just hints that she did reprogram it. It's also interesting to know that she's picked by Gendo to represent Nerve to the world at that conference that they go to in Old Tokyo, which is nothing but a wasteland, which makes sense why they'd be, practicing this thing there, this experimental thing. Gendo personally picked Ritsuko to do it, which again just goes into that kind of hinted-at relationship that is present between those two characters, but I will still not get into that yet. You just get another hint at it here. Shinji, we actually get progression. Actually, some really good progression with him in this one. And you really understand right here that he cares for Misato during the fight. He doesn't really have much of a character until that fight scene. When everything starts going awry, he starts screaming for Misato to get out of there. Misato told him that he could die, but Shinji's fine. And Shinji actually goes, I don't care about me, I care about you. And he's basically like, I need you in my life. Oh my god, I've grown attached to you. And he's screaming, and really, he starts really seeing Misato as a part of his family, though he doesn't really recognize it yet. The last part of this episode is when the part when he finally realizes just what Misato is to him, just how important Misato is to him, and just what his situation is with Misato, is when he's walking to school with Toji and Kensuke, because Kensuke and Toji come to pick Shinji up every day, which I think is a nice little touch. And Shinji is actually very grateful for them. I can tell he is, because he's walking and he's smiling and he looks like a 14-year-old kid. And that's important. He's actually acting like a 14-year-old kid. And he's getting really annoyed at the end of this episode with Misato, and he's walking, and they both Toji and Kensuke go, you're lucky you're living with Misato, and Shinji's like, no, she's nothing but a slob, and then they still say, you're lucky. And the line that really sums up what this episode is in a nutshell, is she lets you see a side of her that no one else does. You're family now. And Shinji just stops and he smiles, and it is just such a great moment for him. Not much to say about Shinji, but that's some good progression there. Without there being a lot of dialogue, without there being much even screen time for him, you smile. Seeing Shinji smile, and you're like, oh, thank you. You know, you're good. It's good. It's just good. Gendo, I love Gendo in this episode. He's very much so. We finally learned that he really is acting in his own interest. During the opening scene, shows that he's keeping key information from all the others at NERV, which confirms what I said earlier, that where I said he's clearly keeping a lot of information from everyone when it comes to NERV, and even Seele, even though we don't really know who Seele is yet, though it is really hinted at, and really foreshadowed. And it's confirmed when he's looking at a note that he has personally marked that has a bunch of black notes on it. It's like one of those stereotypical government documents where like everything is censored out of it. It looks like that, and that just confirmed that he's hiding something. He's hiding something out there. Time for religious symbolism. The Greek cross. Misato is seen throughout the show wearing the Greek cross on her necklace and on her ears. Now, of course, when we find out where that came from, it makes a lot of sense as to what that means. However, what does the Greek cross actually represent? Well, after doing a lot of research, I discovered that the Greek cross often means strength, considering the fact that it is not really a cross, because we always think of the cross being the Christian cross, the one that Jesus was crucified on. But no, these ones have all of the sides are equal in length. And it turns out that represents strength and is often used as a representation for the sun, meaning light. Which is interesting, because Misato is always upbeat despite her tragic backstory, and it really does fit with her character. Not much to say about the Greek cross, but when we discover why she's kind of obsessed with this kind of figurine, it really fits her character. And that's why when people say that, oh, they only used the religious symbolism because it looked cool, I take that with a grain of salt, because if you really look at it, and if you read your Bible, and if you looked up and done your research, the themes are still there. And the Greek cross that we see here is just another example of this, or is just one of the many examples of this where the themes fit together. What this episode does confirms to me that Misato is the hero of Neon Genesis Evangelion. It isn't Shinji, it isn't Asuka, it isn't Rei, it definitely isn't Gendo, it isn't Ritsuko, it's Misato. She's kind of like the Sam of this episode, and I'm talking about Sam from Lord of the Rings. Sam from Lord of the Rings is without a doubt the hero of that trilogy. Misato here is that kind of hero. It just confirms here, because she is the person that's pulling the strings, at least in the daylight. She is the person holding a lot of people together, even though she has a tragic backstory, and that really could eat her up, and it kind of does after a while. She still manages to be upbeat, and she still manages to lead through, and she still manages to keep her head high. So this episode really sold to me, and really establishes that without a shadow of a doubt, Misato is the hero of Neon Genesis Evangelion. I'm loving the science to this show. And then, of course, the Eva, the experimental Eva, the JA, is a foreshadow to the unmanned Eva units in End of Evangelion. Which even the designs look similar in terms of their angularness, in terms of their, to be honest, kind of how ugly they look, while how beautiful the Eva units look, how ugly these things look. Great contrast. It also shows that there is destruction to the city, unlike some of the Godzilla movies, where especially in the Showa series, where it seems like Tokyo gets destroyed every single year, and then it's miraculously built the next year after that just to get destroyed again. Here we actually see the devastation of New Tokyo 3. We actually see the dead angel from the previous episode dead, and you see a lot of buildings crushed, and we actually feel the impact that shit is happening during this, and it sets up a great continuity. And it also establishes that this isn't just a Japanese thing. This is going on all over the world, because it says that there's Evas being built in Germany. The US hasn't shipped in yet, but they will soon, and it just lists off all these things, and it just lists here that it's not just Japan that's concerned about the angels, it's clearly a world issue. Well, thank you, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of Congratulations, the Neon Genesis Evangelion Retrospective. I'm Adam Noyce from Adam Noyce, and sayonara.
Synthesize.